My mother slid the property file across the table like it was already decided. We were in the corner booth of a mid-range Italian place they loved, because it felt classy, but still had free refills. Fairy lights tangled around fake plants. The waiter had just set down my pasta when my father cleared his throat like a judge about to read a sentence. "So," he said, nudging the folder closer to me, "this is the paperwork for Layla's apartment. We talked to the bank. All we need is your signature and the transfer from your account. Then it's done." I stared at the folder. My name, in block letters, peeked out from the top page. "My account," I repeated, tasting the words carefully, like something I might be allergic to. "Don't start," my mother said, lifting her wineglass. "We all know you've been saving for years. It's not like you have a family yet. Your sister is getting married. Timing matters." Across from me, Layla dabbed the corner of her lip with a napkin, her engagement ring catching the light of the overhead lamp. She didn't look guilty. She looked like a woman being presented with a menu. "It'll be an investment," my father added. "The apartment will be in your name and hers, of course. That she lived there with Adam. It's fair. She's the one starting a household." "Fair," I echoed softly. Inside, something small and tired in me finally sat down. Because this was not the first time my future had been repurposed into a gift for my sister. It was just the first time they were doing it in front of me with such open, casual entitlement, as if my years of saying yes had become a permanent characteristic. "We already told the agent you'd confirm by Monday," my mother said. "So don't overthink it, Zara. Sometimes you just have to do the right thing for family." That word family landed like a stone in my lap. Layla finally looked at me, wide brown eyes framed by lashes she'd paid someone to apply that afternoon. "It means the world that you'd help," she said. "You know I'll pay you back once Adam's promotion comes through. And you won't be alone. You'll still have your room at home if you need it." My room at home. The childhood bedroom they used as an argument against me leaving for good. As if a single bed and a wardrobe half filled with hand-me-downs were an adequate substitute for my own life. "Zara," my father said, in that tone that meant he thought I was being difficult. "Say something." I picked up my fork and twirled a strand of pasta, my hand steady enough that even I was impressed. "You want me," I said calmly, "to give up the down payment. I've saved for 10 years so that Layla can buy a luxury 2-bedroom apartment with a view move-in, with her fiancé and list me as a co-owner on paper." I met his eyes, knowing we both understand exactly whose name actually matters to the bank. He shifted, uncomfortable. "That's a harsh way to put it. Is it incorrect?" I asked. He didn't answer. My mother sighed, long-suffering. "You always twist things. I don't know how we ended up with one daughter who makes everything so complicated, and another who just wants everyone to be happy." Layla flushed delicately, like being called the easy one was a compliment. A familiar ache rose in my chest, but something was different tonight. The ache wasn't just hurt anymore. It was information. I set my fork down. "I'm not signing," I said. The air shifted. The noise of the restaurant clinking cutlery, laughter. A baby whining fell dull around our booth. "Zara," my mother whispered sharp, "don't embarrass us." "I'm not embarrassing anyone," I said quietly. "I'm just telling you what I'm not willing to do." I touched the edge of the folder, then pushed it back toward my father. "I'm not giving you my down payment. I'm not tying my financial future to my sister's marriage." My father's jaw clenched. "We raised you. We sacrificed. I know exactly what you sacrificed," I cut in, before he could begin the usual list of school fees and packed lunches like a moral invoice. "And I know exactly what I've sacrificed for this family too." Layla's voice came soft, wounded. "So you just want me to live in that tiny rental forever?" "I want you to live in whatever you can afford," I said. Like I did. I turned to my parents. You chose, a long time ago, which daughter you were going to invest in. Silence bloomed, thick and electric. My mother set her glass down harder than she meant to. This is jealousy, she announced, as if diagnosing a rare disease. You've always been jealous of Layla. She shines, and you hate that. The old me would have folded here. I would have apologized, said I was just tired, offered a smaller slice of myself to make everyone more comfortable. Instead, I inhaled slowly and met her gaze. I'm not jealous, I said. I'm done being invisible. That's different. Before she could respond, I reached for my bag and stood. Where are you going? My father demanded. Home, I said. I have work in the morning, and apparently I have thinking to do. My mother's mouth pinched. Don't be dramatic, Zara. We'll talk about this at home. She gave the folder a little tap. You'll understand once you've calmed down. I'm the calmest I've ever been, I replied. I left my untouched pasta on the table, dropped enough cash to cover it, and walked out into the cool night. Outside, the air felt different. Or maybe it was just me. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow I have a special story for you. I didn't cry in the car. Old habits. Years of learning that tears made my mother roll her eyes and my father retreat behind his phone. That Layla's tears were a crisis and mine were an inconvenience. So I drove back to my apartment with dry eyes and a sharp, clean silence in my chest. Technically, I could have lived at home rent-free. They reminded me often. But my company's office was across town, and I'd taken the first decent studio I could afford 3 years ago with my own money. The walls were thin, the view was of a parking lot, and the kitchen barely deserved the name, but it was mine. My name alone on the lease. I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, listening to the faint hum of my neighbor's TV. On the small table by the window, my laptop sat where I'd left it that morning. Next to it, a stack of folders, not unlike the one my father had pushed at me, held my reality. Savings accounts, investment statements, contracts. The difference was that these papers told a story my parents pretended not to know. I changed into an oversized t-shirt, made tea, and sat down. On autopilot, I opened the spreadsheet I'd built years ago. Tabs for everything. Columns for every transfer I'd ever made. Because if there was one thing I did better than anyone in my family, it was keeping track. My job title on LinkedIn was Senior Operations Strategist at a mid-sized tech firm. What it actually meant was that I saw patterns other people missed. Inefficiencies, risks, opportunities hidden in the numbers. I quietly reshaped processes, restructured teams, and saved the company enough money that my boss now pretended he'd always believed in me. That skill didn't switch off when I clocked out. Scrolling through the spreadsheet, I looked at a decade of being the responsible one rendered in black and green. Rent transfers when Layla couldn't make her share. Emergency deposits when my father forgot a bill. Tuition top-ups when my mother miscalculated. The down payment fund growing slowly, line by line starred, highlighted, sacred. The one thing I'd kept for myself. I clicked on another tab. Bailout family. 2 years ago, when my parents' café had almost gone under, I had wired them enough to cover the debt, and then some. It hadn't been a gift, no matter how much my mother tried to paint it that way. I'd insisted on paperwork, a quiet, firm conversation with their lawyer and then mine. In the end, I'd become a majority owner of the business I never wanted, just so I could protect them from losing the building entirely. Only on paper, my mother had said back then, laughing it off, waving the documents away. It doesn't really mean anything. You're family. But in my line of work, I knew better than anyone that what was only on paper was often the only thing that mattered when everything else fell apart. Now, sitting under the weak glow of my desk lamp, I opened the scanned contract. There it was. 51% of the café. 51% of the building it sat in. My name. I stared at it until my tea went cold. My phone buzzed. Mum, we'll talk tomorrow. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Layla, I know it's a lot, but you're my sister. We always said we'd look out for each other. Another message popped in before I could reply. Layla, besides, you've always been better with money. This won't even dent you. I set the phone down without answering. Because that casual sentence, "this won't even dent you," told me everything I needed to know about the story they told themselves about me. Zara, the reliable one. Zara, the safety net. Zara, the walking bank account with feelings. I closed my eyes and saw Lella's face across the restaurant table. The way she hadn't even asked if I was okay before thanking me for something I hadn't agreed to. Underestimated, dismissed. Slow burn anger turning into clarity. I reopened my eyes and for the first time opened a new document titled simply, Letter. The cursor blinked. Patient. I didn't know yet exactly what I was going to say. I just knew one thing with a clarity that made my hands stop shaking. They needed to see, in writing, the parts of me they'd never bothered to look at. Not angry bullets fired in the heat of a dinner. Not a text message they could screenshot and mock in a group chat. A letter. A record. A quiet knife. At work the next day, nobody would have known anything was wrong. I arrived on time. I wore the navy dress that made me feel like I took up the exact amount of space I intended to. I answered emails, attended meetings, and walked a junior manager through a budget they had butchered with optimistic guesses. You see this? I said gently, highlighting a red cell on their screen. You accounted for revenue, but not for churn. The numbers look better than they are. Oh, he breathed, cheeks coloring. I didn't even see that. That's why I'm here, I said, smiling. That's why I'm here. The irony wasn't lost on me. Around noon, my boss, Daniel, stopped by my desk. Got a minute? He asked. In his office, surrounded by whiteboards and deadlines, he leaned back in his chair and studied me. You okay? He asked. I blinked. Why wouldn't I be? Because you haven't rolled your eyes at my coffee addiction once today, he said lightly. And because your work is precise. But your sentences are short. He tilted his head. Want to talk about it? Or do you want me to pretend not to notice and just assign you more work? A laugh escaped me, small and surprised. I hesitated, then said, My family wants me to give my sister my down payment so she can buy a nice apartment. Daniel winced. Oof. They call it an investment, I added. In what? Their continued ability to avoid reality. He asked dryly. I let out another laugh. It felt good. Something like that. What are you going to do? He asked. I'm not signing, I said. Saying it out loud made it feel more solid. Good, he said immediately. I know I'm not supposed to talk badly about the people who raised you, but that's insane. I shrugged. It's not new, just more obvious. He grew serious. Zara, you know we value you here, right? Like, genuinely? Not in a, we're your family way, but in a, please don't ever quit because you are the backbone of this place way. Warmth flickered in my chest. I know, I said. Thank you. I'm saying, he continued, if you need time or a raise, or a recommendation letter for some wild escape plan, you'll have it. He smiled. Not that I'm encouraging you to leave. I'm just saying you have more options than going back to your childhood bedroom while your sister posts apartment tours on Instagram. The image was so painfully accurate I had to look down. I'm writing a letter, I said softly. Good, he repeated, nodding. Make it the kind of letter that makes a therapist somewhere very proud. When I went back to my desk, I opened my personal email and drafted an appointment request to my lawyer. Because if I was going to finally stop being invisible, I was going to do it properly. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow I have a special story for you. The lawyer's office smelled like old books and quiet consequences. Miss Shah had been recommended by a colleague when I'd first helped my parents with the café. She was in her 50s, with kind eyes that missed nothing and a way of listening that made you feel both seen and slightly guilty, even if you hadn't done anything wrong. So, she said now, after I'd laid everything out, your parents expect you to part with your down payment for your sister's apartment. She steepled her fingers. And you are. Tired. That's one word for it, I said. And you own 51% of their café building, she continued, glancing at the file she'd pulled from her cabinet. On paper. Yes. And you have been financially supporting them and your sister for years. She looked up. But there are no formal agreements for those transfers. No, I admitted. I never wanted it to feel like a transaction. She gave a small, sympathetic smile. Love and money are always a transaction of some kind, Zara. The question is whether both parties are aware of the price. She tapped the file. What do you want? No one had asked me that in those exact words in a very long time. I swallowed. I want to keep my down payment, I said. I want to stop being their emergency fund. I want them to understand clearly what I've already done for them. And I want to set boundaries without feeling like I'm abandoning them to die in the street. Reasonable, she said. Legally and emotionally. I don't want to evict them, I added quickly, guilt rising just from the thought. I don't want to be cruel. You don't have to be cruel to be clear, she said. The law is on your side. That doesn't mean you must use its sharpest edges. But it does mean you are not trapped. I breathed out, slowly. You mentioned a letter, she said. Yes. I opened my bag and pulled out the printed draft. It was longer than anything I'd written outside of work in years. 15 pages of carefully ordered truth. She read in silence, eyes moving steadily. I'd started the letter with facts. Dates, amounts, decisions. The time I'd postponed my own move out to help cover Layla's car after she crashed the first one. The months I'd subsidized the cafe's staff wages. The way my down payment account had been raided once already. Just a loan my mother had promised without my consent. Until I changed banks. Then, after the facts, I'd written the things that had no receipts. How it felt, at 12, to watch my parents clap hardest for Layla's dance recital and forget my science fair. How it felt, at 25, to be told Layla needed it more when I asked for help with my own rent during a rough patch. How it felt last night, when they slid that folder across the table and acted like my 10 years of discipline were a community resource. I ended the letter with a plan. Not a threat. A plan. I would not be signing any documents related to Layla's apartment. I would be reducing my contributions to the cafe to 0 by the end of the year. I would be taking an active role in the management of the building, as was my right as majority owner, including reviewing the lease my parents currently had on extremely generous terms. I would give them 6 months to either adjust to market rate rent with a family discount or to downsize to a smaller space. And I would, effective immediately, no longer be available for emergency transfers unless agreed upon in writing beforehand. Finally, I wrote, in plain language, that I loved them, but that love without respect was a cage I was done living in. Ms. Shah set the letter down and nodded once. This is very clear, she said, and surprisingly kind, considering what you've described. I would suggest one thing. What? Separate letters, she said. One for your parents, one for your sister. The facts can be the same. But the focus will be different. I frowned. Why? Because your parents made a series of choices as adults, she said. Your sister benefited from them. But she is also entangled in a system she didn't design. She gave me a look. Do you want to punish her? Or do you want her to finally see you? The question landed like a soft blow. I pressed my palms together. I want her to see me, I admitted. And I want her to understand that I'm done. Then write to her, Miss Shah said. Not just about money. About patterns. About what it means when she says things like, "This won't even dent you." She tilted her head. People scream, "You're joking," when their version of reality shatters. Not when they lose access to cash. A strange, almost giddy calm settled over me. Because for the first time, someone had put into words what I hadn't allowed myself to fully hope for. This wasn't just about the apartment. It was about the story of who I was in this family, and who I was ready to be without their script. The next week moved slowly and quickly at the same time. My parents alternated between cold silence and guilt-inducing texts. Mum, Uncle Farid says his daughter would never refuse to help her sister. Mum, I didn't realize we raised someone so selfish. My father sent a single message. Dad, think carefully. This is your sister's future. Layla's text was sunnier, edged with desperation. Leela, can we just talk? Just us? Layla, I know Mom is being extra, but we can figure something out. Layla, you always fix things. Please. I didn't ignore her completely. I agreed to meet for coffee on Saturday at the café. It felt strange, walking into a business I technically owned more than half of, and still being greeted like a visitor. Layla was already there, perched on a stool by the window, phone in hand. She waved when she saw me. Hey, she said, hopping down to hug me. She smelled like expensive perfume and stress. Hey, I said, hugging her back. We ordered coffee. She insisted on paying. It felt symbolic in a way she probably didn't intend. So, she said, once we were seated, Mom is. Mum, you know how she gets. Yes, I said carefully. She shouldn't have just assumed. Layla continued, twisting her ring. I told her you might need that money, but she said you'd understand. That you were sensible. Meaning? I asked. Meaning you'd sacrifice a bit for the bigger picture, Layla said, shrugging. Zara, it's not like we're asking you to throw it away. Your name will be on the deed. And after the wedding, once Adam settles into the new role, we can start paying you back. Layla, I said gently, do you know how much I've given you already? She blinked. What do you mean? Your first car, I said. The deposit when you moved out the first time. The emergency rent when you and Adam miscalculated your budget. The credit card bill you forgot to pay. Her cheeks flushed. You offered. Did I asked. Or did I step in because you cried, and Mom called me and said, "You're the only one who can fix this"? She looked away. I'm not blaming you for needing help, I said. I'm asking if you see the pattern. Silence stretched between us. You make more than me, she said finally, voice small. You're good with money. It just made sense. And I'm not allowed to want anything for myself, I asked. Not even a place to live that isn't contingent on your life milestones. Her eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. I almost laughed. This isn't a competition for who has had it worse, I said softly. I know Mom and Dad put you on a pedestal and then chained you to it. They made you their dream, their second chance. I reached for her hand. But they made me the scaffolding. She stared at me, eyes glistening. I'm tired, Layla, I said. Tired of being told I should be grateful to be needed while never being chosen when it matters. She squeezed my hand. I don't want you to feel like that, she whispered. Then hear me now, I said. I will not give you my down payment. I will not be signing that file. I love you. But I am done paying for the kind of love that erases me. She pulled her hand back slowly. Mum is going to lose her mind, she said. She might, I agreed. Dad will side with her, she added. He will, I said. They'll say you don't care about us. They already are, I replied. She looked at me for a long time, as if seeing a version of me she'd never met. What about the café? She asked quietly. Dad said you might change things. I will, I said. But not overnight. I'm giving them time. And I'm involving them in the decisions. They won't be homeless. They just won't get to pretend the building magically pays for itself. They'll say you've turned on them, she whispered. They can say whatever they need to say to make sense of this, I replied. I know the truth. And now, so do you. Her jaw worked. So that's it? Not exactly, I said, because on my desk at home, 2 envelopes waited. One with my parents' names. One with hers. They weren't it. They were the beginning. I chose the night of the engagement dinner. If I had been the version of myself my parents preferred, I would have spent the day helping my mother fuss over flower arrangements and seating charts, reminding her to eat, smoothing over the inevitable fight when Layla wanted modern touches and Mom wanted tradition. Instead, I went to work, came home and changed into a simple dress. I did my own makeup. I looked in the mirror and saw someone who finally fit the tagline that had been circling my mind for days. A quiet strategist who funded everything, finally done being invisible. At the restaurant, the private room was already buzzing when I walked in. Family, friends, Adam's colleagues. Everyone turned to see Layla, glowing in white, and a few steps behind me. There she is, my mother said loudly. The maid of honor who tried to ditch us. Laughter rippled uneasily. Hi, Mom, I said, kissing her cheek. You look beautiful, she huffed. We'll talk later. We will, I agreed. I caught Layla's eye. She looked anxious, but she smiled. Dinner passed in a blur of toasts and small talk. I played my usual role. Competent, composed, making sure everyone had what they needed. Halfway through, my father clinked his glass. A toast, he declared. To my daughters. One about to start a new life. The other always there to support us all. He shot me a meaningful look. The table applauded. I lifted my glass and drank, the champagne suddenly tasting like static. After dessert, when people began drifting toward the bar, I excused myself. Bathroom, I said, when my mother frowned. In reality, I slipped my hand into my bag, wrapped my fingers around the envelopes, and walked down the hall toward the coat room. My parents' coats hung side by side. I slid their letter into the inner pocket of my father's jacket. He would find it later, when the noise had faded and the hangover set in. Layla's letter I placed in her clutch, between her lipstick and her phone. For a second, I considered staying long enough to see her find it. Instead, I stepped back, closed the door, and walked out of the restaurant. On the sidewalk, the night hummed with traffic and possibility. My phone buzzed as I was about to call a ride. Daniel, contract came through. Check your email. Congratulations. Heart pounding, I opened my inbox. There it was. An offer we'd been negotiating for months. A promotion, a salary that made my current one look small, and most importantly, the chance to relocate to the firm's new office in another city within 6 weeks if I wanted it. I laughed out loud, startling a couple walking by, because the timing felt like the universe finally acknowledging the memo I'd written it weeks ago. I hit call. You weren't supposed to read that at a party, Daniel said as soon as he picked up. I figured you'd wait until you were home, with cake or something. I'm on the sidewalk, I said, grinning. But I'll buy myself a cupcake on the way home. So? He asked. What do you think? I think, I said slowly, that I'm ready for a new city. He whooped. Knew it. We'll go over details Monday. But for now, go celebrate. I'm working on it, I said. I ended the call and slipped my phone back into my bag. Behind me, through the restaurant windows, I could see glimpses of my family. My father, laughing at something a colleague said. My mother, rearranging centerpieces. Layla, listening to Adam with her head tipped just so. I turned away and started walking. I was halfway down the block when my phone buzzed again. Layla, did you put this in my bag? A second later. Layla, Zara, what is this? I stopped under a street lamp and exhaled. Another message came through. Longer this time. Layla, this has to be a joke. Tell me this is a joke. And then, as if the words couldn't be contained by text, my phone lit up with her name. Calling. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I answered. You're joking, she screamed before I could say hello. Tell me you're joking, Zara. You can't mean this. You can't just pull out. You can't actually own the café. You can't move away. Her voice cracked on the last word, high and terrified. I closed my eyes and leaned against the cool brick of the building. Leela, I said quietly, everything in that letter is true. You can't do this, she repeated, voice wobbling. They'll fall apart. Mum will fall apart. Dad will. They might, I said. For a while. How can you be so calm? She demanded. Because I've been rehearsing this calm my whole life, I thought. Because I've thought about this for a very long time, I said. Because this isn't me abandoning you. It's me stepping out of a role I was never meant to carry forever. But you said you loved us, she whispered. I do, I said. And I love myself too. Silence. You wrote that you won't be at the apartment signing, she said. That you won't float us anymore. She sniffed. Who even are you? The question, meant as an accusation, landed as a gift. I'm the woman who kept us all from collapsing more times than you know, I said gently. I'm the one who paid the bills. You never saw the one who told Dad to refinance before the bank came for the house. The one who stayed up nights building budgets around Mom's whims. So you never noticed how close we were to disaster. I took a breath. And I'm the woman who is finally done doing all of that in the dark. Through the receiver, I could hear muffled voices. My mother's, sharp and outraged. My father's, low. The rustle of paper. They're reading it, Layla said miserably. They're saying you've turned into someone else. No, I said. I'm just letting you see who I've been all along. I don't want to lose you, she blurted. My throat tightened. You won't, I said. Unless you choose to. I swallowed. But I won't stay in a relationship where my love is measured only in what I give. She was quiet for a long time. What if I come with you? She whispered suddenly. The question shocked me. Layla, I'm serious, she said. What if I get a job there? What if I start over too? I leaned my head back against the brick and stared up at the night sky, barely visible between the buildings. Then, I said slowly, we can talk about that. Not as a condition for me helping you, but as two women deciding, for once, what we want for ourselves. She let out a watery laugh. Mum is going to blame you for corrupting me. She already does, I said. Zara? Her voice softened. I didn't know. About the café. About the money. About any of it. I know, I said. That's part of the problem. I'm sorry, she whispered. I closed my eyes. Thank you. We stayed on the phone a little longer, saying small things that felt big. When we finally hung up, I stood under the street lamp, letting the quiet settle. My phone buzzed again almost immediately. Mom, how could you do this to US? Dad, we need to talk. Now. I stared at their messages, then at the draft email to Daniel still open in my other notifications. For the first time in my life, the path in front of me was not a choice between their crisis and my future. It was a choice between their script and my story. I opened the email and typed, Daniel, thank you for the offer. I thought about it, and I accept. I'm ready for the transfer. Best, Zara. I hit send. Then I opened a new message to my parents. Mum, Dad, I received your messages. I understand that you are upset. I am willing to talk, but only when we can do so without shouting or insults. Everything I needed to say is in the letter. I won't be changing my mind. I love you. I hope, in time, you will see that this is not a betrayal but a boundary. Zara. I stared at the screen, then pressed send. The night felt both heavier and lighter. On my way home, I bought myself a cupcake. Vanilla with too much frosting. In my small kitchen, I ate it standing up, crumbs falling onto the counter, and laughed at the absurdity of it all. 10 years of scraping and saving and smoothing over. One carefully written letter. And suddenly, my life was no longer orbiting around the gravitational pull of their expectations. I didn't know exactly what would happen next, how loud my mother would get, how many relatives would be enlisted as messengers, what names they'd call me when I wasn't there. But for the first time, the uncertainty didn't terrify me. It felt like an open road. I rinsed my plate, turned off the lights, and stood by the window, looking out a parking lot that would soon no longer be my view. My phone buzzed once more. Layla, I don't understand everything yet, but I read your letter twice. I'm going to start budgeting. Adam is freaking out, LOL. Mom is screaming. Dad looks tired. I just wanted you to know I'm thinking about what you said. I smiled. Zara, that's all I ever wanted. I put my phone face down on the table. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was mine. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.